Before the first cities, there were those who watched. Before the pyramids rose in Egypt, before Athens and Rome shaped the ancient world, there was Sumer, the earliest known civilization in human history. In these quiet river plains of southern Mesopotamia, humanity first built cities, developed writing, and began the long tradition of watching the sky with purpose. It is here, in the oldest surviving records ever made, that we find the beginnings of astronomy and the first systematic attempts to understand the heavens. This episode explores how the Sumerians observed the sky, what they recorded, and why their work became the foundation for all later civilizations. To understand the Sumerian approach to the heavens, we must begin with their worldview. The cosmos, for the people of Sumer, was layered and interconnected. The heavens stood above as the realm of the gods, forming an orderly structure that reflected divine will. Beneath it lay the earthly world of humans, cities, fields, temples, and rivers, and below everything stretched the deep, dark waters of the Abzu. These realms were not separate in a modern sense. They interacted constantly. The gods moved freely between heaven and earth, bringing wisdom, kingship, or judgment. In this worldview, the sky was not empty space. It was a living, meaningful domain whose patterns shaped politics, agriculture, and spiritual life. This cosmic structure influenced how the Sumerians observed the heavens. Because the sky was viewed as a source of messages and omens, its behavior required careful attention. Priest astronomers, often working atop temple platforms or ziggurats, made nightly observations of the horizon. They watched the rising and setting of stars, the phases of the moon, and the brilliant path of the planet Venus, long associated with the goddess Inanna. Their observations were not casual or occasional. They were ritualized, scheduled, and precise, carried out at consistent hours and tied to religious festivals, agricultural cycles, and political decisions. In the cities of Uruk, Eridu, Lagash, and Nippur, this sky-watching tradition became an essential part of daily life. The Sumerian calendar was anchored to the movements of the moon and the agricultural year. Priests tracked the earliest forms of star lists and celestial charts. They measured time by the shadows cast by temple walls and by the appearance of key stars on the horizon. These early observers created the practices that would later be refined by the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, and much later civilizations that inherited their knowledge. The Sumerians recorded an impressive variety of sky phenomena. Many of these were ordinary and predictable: lunar phases, eclipses, planetary conjunctions, seasonal winds, and storm patterns. Others were rarer and carried great significance: comets, meteors, halos around the sun or moon, and unusual cloud formations. And woven throughout their records are descriptions of sudden brightness, radiant presence, and moments of overwhelming light, what they called melamu. This term referred to a powerful, awe-inspiring radiance, often linked to divine activity. While its symbolic meaning is clear, it may also reflect genuine observations of intense luminous events in the sky. These records survive because of the Sumerian writing system. Cuneiform, the earliest known script, was carved into clay tablets using reed styluses. Scribes trained for years to master this complex system. They learned hundreds of signs, memorized administrative and ritual formulas, and became the custodians of their society's knowledge. When an unusual sky event occurred, it was these scribes who preserved the description. Their task was not to embellish, but to document. And because writing required significant labor and resources, only important observations were recorded at all. For this reason, Sumerian sky records deserve respect. They reflect the observations of trained individuals working within a structured tradition. When they wrote of unusual brightness, irregular motion, or unexpected descent from the heavens, they did so with a vocabulary shaped by religion, but with an observational discipline shaped by practice. Their descriptions are not scientific in the modern sense, yet they are far from random or careless. They represent the earliest attempt in human history to systematically capture what the sky was doing. When we analyze Sumerian writings, several categories of unusual sky phenomena emerge. One category involves radiant brilliance, sudden or unexplained illumination. Another involves unusual motion, objects or lights that did not align with predictable celestial paths. A third includes descent events, moments when something was described as coming downward from the heavens toward the human realm. And finally, there are celestial irregularities, departures from expected cycles, such as stars appearing in the wrong place or at unusual times. These patterns provide insight into how the Sumerians interpreted moments that stood outside the ordinary functions of the sky. Modern scholars interpret these records with care. Some descriptions are symbolic, embedded in ritual language and mythological storytelling. Others correspond to natural phenomena, meteors, atmospheric optics, clouds illuminated at unusual angles, or the effects of dust storms on sunlight. Some may reflect the ritualized language of divine presence, where light metaphorically represents power. Yet there remain passages in which brightness, movement, or descent are described in ways that do not correspond neatly to known events. These ambiguous moments do not lend themselves to easy explanation. Instead, they remind us that the ancient sky contained sights that challenged even the most dedicated observers. The significance of Sumer's contributions cannot be overstated. This was the first civilization to record the sky in writing. Their practices laid the foundation for all later astronomy in the ancient Near East. The Babylonian priests who later developed detailed star catalogues, eclipse predictions, and planetary tables stood on the shoulders of the Sumerian tradition. The Greeks who studied celestial motions drew upon concepts inherited from earlier Mesopotamian systems. Even today, historians of science trace the lineage of observational astronomy back to these earliest watchers, standing atop their temple platforms. As we begin this scholarly series, Sumer offers us the essential starting point. Here we see the first organized attempt to understand the heavens, not through myth alone, but through observation, notation, and reflection. Their tablets reveal a world where the sky was a source of knowledge, guidance, and occasionally, mystery. Their approach blends the practical with the sacred, the observational with the symbolic. And it is this blend that characterizes much of humanity's early engagement with the sky. This is why Sumer matters. It is the cradle of written astronomy, the origin point of sky-watching traditions that would shape the ancient world for millennia. As we move forward in this scholarly series, from Egypt to Akkad, from the Indus Valley to ancient China, from the Mediterranean to the Americas, we will see how different cultures inherited, reinvented, and expanded these practices. But it begins here, in the river plains where the first tablets were pressed, and where humanity first tried to understand the patterns above. In Sumer, the sky was a living text, and the people who observed it were its earliest interpreters. Their records allow us to glimpse the beginnings of humanity's long, thoughtful engagement with the heavens, an engagement that continues to this day. Thank you for watching this episode of The Watchers. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Explore our other series, from Odyssey Adventures to Chronicle Stories, Academy Deep Dives, and Night Episodes. We've got something for everyone. Stay tuned for more.